Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sonam, and we welcome you to the National CoE's virtual event on research and innovation in network security. So we have two panel discussions today. One is on the research in the academia side in network security, and the second panel discussion would be on the innovation side in network security. So today we would like to welcome three professors. Please welcome Dr. Chittranjan Hota from BITS Pilani. Please welcome Dr. Ketan Rajawat from IIT Kanpur. And please welcome Dr. Sachin Tripathi from IIT Dhanbad. Thank you so much for joining us today. This session will go on for next 30 minutes and we'll keep last 15 minutes for Q&A. So I would request the audience to put their questions in the questions box on the right. And if you have any direct questions for any other attendees, you can use the chat window as well. And if you have any questions that you want to come on stage and ask personally from the speakers, you may raise your hand in the last 15 minutes. We'll try to bring you on stage and you can ask your questions real time. Thank you so much. Over to you, Vinayak.
Yeah, thank you, Sonam, for setting up this discussion and introducing the speaker here. So for all of the audience here, so this National Center of Excellence for Cybersecurity Technology Development and Border Entrepreneurship, that is an initiative of the Data Security Council of India and Ministry of Electronics and IT. So this initiative has largely looking at how to create a national effort to gear up the R&D work in the cybersecurity space, because cybersecurity, as we all know, that is a very important area from both commercial value creation perspective and from the national security perspective as well. So, so there are three key pillars that we thought when we devised this particular initiative. So one is the technology development in cybersecurity space, and the core research which goes in terms of developing those technology, and that's why we have been increasingly started focusing on a research work happening in the country in cybersecurity space, and the entire national CoE's academic engagement and network is now expanding day by day. So most of the key institutions of India, IIT Kanpur, IIT Kharagpur, then IIT Delhi, IIT Jammu, now IIT Dhanbad, we are working. We already have signed MOU with BITS Pilani on all of the campuses. So is to create that network of academic institutions and try to see the research happening there and try to see how we as an industry or a startup world can leverage from that research, basically. And then see how can we get a more and more momentum and more attention to the cybersecurity core research. And the second pillar of this activity is the startup ecosystem, the industry development ecosystem or incubation ecosystem, basically. So we have already National Center of Excellence as the incubation center set up in Delhi, but we also have one center in Telangana, but we also want to see that effort multiplied all across the country through various academic institutions and other incubators and accelerators to create a cybersecurity agenda in each of them. And then third party is once the technology is there, once the startups create a product, then third party is creating a market ecosystem for the cybersecurity products and innovation in this country. So we work on these three pillars, and today we are trying to bring these two important elements to the table, and especially in the area of network security, because this is an area which requires very intense research kind of a contribution. This is an area which requires a little bit patient kind of effort and patient long-time effort to really create those capabilities. And creating those capabilities at the technology level, especially fundamental level, had been very, as compared to any other cybersecurity area, probably this is the area is supposed to be a little bit difficult, supposed to be very challenging. And we have, fortunately, almost 4 to 5 startups in the country now who has a very core capability in cybersecurity space, and we'll be talking to them after this session. But we also have a lot of good research happens in a academic world as well. So in this discussion, I'm very thankful to Professor Hota, Professor Ketan, and Professor Sachin to join us in this particular interaction to reveal the academic research happen in this area. So how we do the discussion, yes, initially we'll like each of you to briefly talk about your work, the research that you have been undertaking, and probably briefly talk about how you are looking at the engagement with the industry or probably the overall entire ecosystem of cybersecurity. And then I will have some the questions to engage to carry this conversation forward. And towards the end, we'll pick up the questions coming from the audience here on this chat box or questions, or some of them will also like to come on the stage as well. So with this, thanking all of three you, I like to kick off today's interaction on a research in network security area. Briefly, starting with Professor Hota, then Professor Ketan, and then Professor Sachin, briefly talk about what are those areas that you are engaged into, what kind of research that you have been working on, and how have you been planning your research, what kind of support that you have been getting from the student community and from the larger ecosystem as well. So, Professor Hota. So, you are on mute. Sir, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Thanks, Vinayak, for setting the context. Let me tell a few words about myself. I'm a professor at BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus. After working for around 10 years in Pilani, I moved to this Hyderabad, and I actually was doing teaching, research, and administration over last 15 years in this Hyderabad. So on this particular space, this security area, I got around 3 to 4 sponsored projects from different agencies. So two of them I'll speak on this platform. First one is a project which I got from DETI with support from TCS and Intel, which was actually on seeing the impact of the torrents, that is the peer-to-peer applications on any campus level network. So what we did there, we captured the entire network traffic that came to the Hyderabad campus, which was of around 5,000 to 6,000 users were staying during that time. So this is 3 to 4 years old project. We captured all that traffic. We also created a test bed of our own, where there were 2 labs which we identified. In one lab, we created a demilitarized zone, and using a VM setup, we created our own malware creation setup, and we also got few malwares downloaded from websites like malware.com. We got some data sets from UT dollars, and then we created the peer-to-peer traffic or those applications we ran on the other lab. So some of those applications were these torrents, then these Bitcoin, and then you have P2P live streaming packets. So now once we got these set of applications traffic captured, we did a filtering of those packets, we did pre-processing, and then we wanted actually to identify or to separate out, to segregate the traffic or the applications which are all of non-peer-to-peer and which are of peer-to-peer type. During those time, around 4 to 5 years back, not much solution was available on the UTM device which was running at the periphery, which was a CyberOhm UTM device which we are having at the university network here in Hyderabad. Once we got that entire traffic, we did this pre-process. We wrote our own scripts to separate out peer-to-peer from non-peer-to-peer. Then within that peer-to-peer, we identified the malware or the bot traffics like Welduck, Storm. So this type of malware peer-to-peer traffic also we identified. Then we actually used a lot of machine learning algorithms into this, and we also used some of the concepts which comes from networking domain, where we identified a set of features. So those features were like, for example, you can have a set of TCP features or a set of TCP flags. You can have IP features like IP address and maybe the IP payload length, etc. And then we also used few other type of features. For example, some signal processing based features we used to actually dig deeper into those traffic patterns. Once we did all these, then we built our machine learning models. So several ML models we built using decision trees, using random forest, Bayesian networks, and also we tried with a lot of ensemble classifiers, where we wanted to see whether our classification accuracy is improving or not. So once we identified these malware bots, peer-to-peer bots, we created rules, automatic rules, which actually helped us in injecting these rules into the running firewall within the campus. So to our surprise, we compared our results with Snot. Snot is an open source IDS platform, Linux-based that we created. And then once we had our results from our IDS, we found out another around 30 to 40 internal machines which were running bots, peer-to-peer bots, without the knowledge of the users. So that was one of the projects which we completed in around 3 to 4 years with funding support from these organizations. And the next project that we did, or we are currently doing, which is ongoing, is actually on IoT security. So this is a project which actually is a funded project from METI, Ministry of IT, which is now DETI is being called as METI. And we also got some support from TCS, Intel, Progress Software, and Cisco. And Netherlands government also gave around 6 to 7 lakhs worth of money to this. So this is a 2.5 to 3 crore project, the overall project cost. But from that, my contribution or my share is around 60, 70 lakhs, which we did. So what are we doing in that IoT security project is any code that runs on these IoT devices, does this code have capability to sustain itself, capability to protect itself from getting tampered, from getting hacked, or from getting changed? So if somebody is trying to, there are again tools, techniques through which you can tamper the code that runs on these IoT devices. And if a hacker or a bad guy wants to do that on the IoT device, we actually are using a new technology called as return-oriented programming, ROP, which is again a technique which came from European universities in somewhere around 2007-8. And other American universities nowadays also have gone into the same space. Using that ROP technique, ROP is actually a hacking tool. You can use ROP to mount a buffer overflow attack on a code which is running on a machine. So we use the same ROP concept to create a set of ROP gadgets, a chain of ROP gadgets, a sequence of ROP gadgets, which will actually update the call stack addresses. So my original code will run, which is augmented with this ROP chain, and with, of course, little minimal overhead. And if there is any attack which is happening to that code, this ROP chain will not allow this thing to happen. It will automatically stop in the middle. So this is the second project which I did. Maybe in the course of time, I can give you more details about this ROP chain technique. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Professor Ketan, this is very good summary about the way you have covered these two projects. This also tells us that one is the area, other is the technology, the other is the problem that you are solving, and more importantly, the kind of technology stack that you have used and kind of resources that you have used. And we will definitely dwell in this detail, but it also tells us the kind of partnership that you have. One is the funding partnership coming from MIT, but how you engage with the industry in some of those projects. So it's a very interesting area to dwell into detail. So we'll definitely dwell into that. So Professor Ketan, your experience of working in network security area.
Hello. So I am in Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Kanpur. And part of my work is related to network security. And I'll briefly talk about some of the works just to get you interested in it. So in particular, many of us at EE are interested in security problems arising in critical infrastructure. So such as smart grid installations throughout the country. So I'll give you one example just to describe. So this is a recent project that we completed with DST. So since about 7-8 years ago, we have seen countrywide installation of the so-called phaser measurement units, PMUs, for distributed power system state estimation. So these PMUs really represent the future of smart grids because they provide precise voltage and current phasers at 20 millisecond interval, 50 times a second. And monitoring of a power system at that rate is really helpful as it provides us with a precise knowledge of system state and goes a long way in avoiding grid failures and blackouts. So now these PMUs add timestamps to the data, and they how they do it is via synchronization, and that requires the use of GPS, which basically provides information about the current time to the exact millisecond. So one particular problem that we looked at, what if someone spoofs the GPS, because GPS signal is open and it is possible to create GPS signal very cheaply. And what would happen if someone spoofs the signal? Theoretically, if you spoof the signal, it is really dangerous because you could change the estimated states that are visible at the control center. The control center may think that some place power is down, and they may increase the generation at that place, and that could lead to grid instability, and that could lead to grid failure. So that is where we are trying to see if it is possible to detect such attacks. Now this is a very interesting example of the so-called network cartography. Basically, you can think of it like this: whenever you are looking at a power system state, the whole network state would have some signature, and that would depend on the underlying network topology. And if you change something at one point, but if you know the signature, you can detect that there is a discrepancy. And you can also not only detect there is a discrepancy, you can detect the source of that discrepancy. And therefore, with doing some signal processing at the control station, you can readily detect that an attack has taken place. And this is something that can take place each time you are going to do, let's say, load dispatch. So essentially, this is the essence of network cartography. This network cartography problem I have been working since many years. So this is essentially useful in any area that you are working in. For example, you can monitor not only network state, you can monitor network traffic or delays. And whatever you are monitoring, there is a certain pattern or there is a certain signature that is existing. And if you can actually identify the signature using sub-signal processing, or you can call it artificial intelligence, machine learning, pattern recognition, if you can identify those signatures, you can identify such an attack. So this is one of the project that we completed. This was part of a bigger project given by Department of Science and Engineering. Recently, I am also working in UAV security, and which ties up closely to anti-drone measures, so counter-drone systems, because they are all related to the security aspect, network security aspect. I'll also briefly talk about the Technology Innovation Hub on cybersecurity, which is at IIT Kanpur. So this is a recently funded project, and the goal is to carry out research in various areas of cybersecurity and develop certain expertise in these areas, develop certain tools, and create a set of standards and best practices, train some manpower, and even fund startups. So I'll just say that the whole project is divided into several verticals, such as critical infrastructure, automotive security, and UAV security. And within each vertical, we'll be looking at various aspects of security, such as network security, database security, all the aspects of security. I'll be looking particularly at the network security part, but my colleagues are there in each of these parts. As part of the Technology Innovation Hub, we will be floating lots of call for proposals, both for academia and for startups. In fact, our goal is to fund lots of startups in these next few years. And all this information will be available in the coming few months from our website. And we'll be looking forward to nice proposals from all over the country. So if you are a startup looking for funding opportunities, please keep monitoring this website. So we'll have great opportunities for you in the near future. Thank you.
This is good, and we know it well because as I work closely with IIT Kanpur, we had engaged with IIT Kanpur to do almost 2 hackathons in SCADA security. Now IIT Kanpur, the one larger hackathon we have done it at a virtual mode, and I had myself visited your C3 High Lab, and I am aware about the C3 Hub project that you have been working on, and know Professor Maninder and Professor quite well. And I think with this funding coming to you and the way the project is structured, so there is a lot of possibility for us to work together because we represent a lot of startups in the country, and our incubation already has 20 plus startups now in cybersecurity space. And we had been talking to Professor Shuklan, Professor Agrawal on how exactly we can take this partnership ahead. We also are planning now to engage with IIT Dhanbad, and I just had an interaction with Dr. Sachin. So how can we engage IIT Dhanbad, because you have also been investing on the cybersecurity space quite a lot, and you also have labs set up there. So briefly, sir, you can talk about the work that you have been doing, the kind of setup that you have, Dr. Sachin.
Okay, so good evening to all. Recently, I have completed one project in the 2 to 3 years back, a sponsored project, and that was basically in the area of multicast applications, security in the multicast applications. And in that project, basically we proposes some key management algorithms where we apply groupware communications where the security is a primary concern. That sorts of some applications we proposed actually. Currently, as far as our infrastructure is concerned, recently we have set up one IDS sort of tool like Monosec we have purchased, where there is a provision of network analysis, packet analysis, and the session analysis. And basically, we are designing as a research some IDS systems and IPS systems over there. And now I'm exploring the usage of AI and ML for the designing of intrusion detection system, because all of us are aware, currently the traditional systems that we have, like firewall or viruses, whatever, they are having certain limitations. Say, for example, in the firewall, we are just predefining the certain addresses or something, and we are blocking the traffic from that particular addresses, something like. So here in the intrusion, basically the benefit is it is capable to handle the dynamicity of the kind of attacks actually, because in the today's scenario, the variety of the attacks are increasing. Means daily to daily, the form and the shape of the attacks are increasing, and intruders are very smart. They are incorporating the malicious things in the communications very easily and in the various forms actually. So basically, I started in the intrusion detection system, and considering the dynamicity of the attacks. So my thought was let us explore the possibility of the AI and ML for that. And what we did, we have we have tried to design in the recent research. We tried to design some intelligent intrusion detection systems actually, means that are self-capable of based on the behavior of the traffic that the network is receiving. We are making a system smart so that it will be detecting the intrusions during the communications actually. And for that, we captured the we have used so far, we have used some standard data available 2019 and 2017. Some data was published, so we took that data and we have experimented with the various machine learning techniques over there. First we did the feature extraction, and then we applied for the classification using the ML tools actually. So apart from this, we are working in the information security and all, and we have submitted the projects to which is under the review for Ministry of Defense and other places. That is basically related to the ad hoc security. Means we are dealing with solutions for the trust based or something for the ad hoc communications. So I think I have given the brief idea towards my end actually. Thank you.
So as we are with you, and briefly I will like to check with you. So the setting of this lab is an interesting part. So you have some solution here to brought together. So is there a designated place that you have to carry out the research in a cybersecurity space? How does that happen? It's like a common lab, or there's a lab specifically designated for cybersecurity?
No, in the lab actually we have dedicated certain area, and servers we have installed in this our central server room.
Okay.
So and for experimentation part, we are just selected certain area of the traffic, and that we are experimenting on that.
Okay.
And so our students are developing some cyber slacking softwares or something based on the certain area traffic. Means say faculty chambers or some other places like that.
Okay. So Dr. Ketan, I think I have seen that. And can you just little bit talk about the research facility, the C3I lab, and the plan for C3I hub that you have been working on? So that people here understand the kind of effort that is being put in IIT Kanpur, or any institution like IIT.
Yes, so the C3I lab is basically it's a dedicated center, and it has all the things related to cybersecurity, servers, everything located at one place. Currently, we are planning lots of short courses to train the manpower in these related areas. And the funding part is separate. Funding part comes from separate area. But mainly, currently, it is being used for floating all these courses. And in addition to that, we have a small test bed, actually 2 or 3 test beds for this cyber infrastructure part. So for example, we have a particular physical layer security test bed and the network layer security test bed. And those test beds are used to test various kinds of attacks and try to find out, what are the counter attack strategies and so on.
And the SCADA security, you also have the SCADA devices there so
Yes.
that you can look at those. So what kind of partnership or engagement you have with the industry which has been developing these solutions and deploying these solutions?
Yes. So the SCADA and PLC, these are like hardware devices that you need, that are actually commercially available hardware devices that are used all over India. So what we do is we actually take those devices, and with the permission of the vendor, for example, Synergy is our partner, Husky is our partner. So with the permission of the vendor, we actually try to see how secure they are. So recently, for example, we found many vulnerabilities there. And once those vulnerabilities are found, we report to the vendor. The vendor fixes them, releases a patch. Once the vendor releases the patch, in order to emphasize the importance of that patch, this data is uploaded to CVE. CVE calculates a score and they put it on their website. So you can see if, I can provide more information about it if someone is interested. There are lots of patches released for all of these devices, all because of our efforts to identify those security flaws.
And so this is largely the industry which is a developer industry, like who has solution design. But there are other set of industry which is using this solution basically. So you have working relation with those industry in a critical sector who had been using the research that we have been doing and deploying in the network. So how you work with the user industry, user of or buyer of a security industry?
Yeah, so that part is mostly Professor Shukla has been doing that part. So he interacts on a like a regular basis with this industry who actually use the solutions. And again, his main day-to-day working involves basically getting the protocols, or them actually informing him about the protocols they are using, and then he and his group is trying to find out vulnerabilities there. And the industry is actually interested in how what these vulnerabilities are.
Yeah. So Professor Hota, and I think one important interesting thing that I have looked at in the 2-3 things that you talk about is this partnership with the industry that you are able to build. And so how easy to get an industry to committed to the research that you have been doing? And that is one question. But more important question is, there is a certain expectation in terms of the scale and effort that industry should be putting in R&D work on cybersecurity. So are you satisfied with respect to the industry's contribution and commitment to this R&D in cybersecurity space? You are on mute, sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Yeah, I was hearing you about the lab setup that you asked.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll share one slide for that, and then probably I'll take on your question of what type of engagements I do with industry. So let me just go to the sharing screen. Can you see my PPT here?
Yeah, we are able to. Yeah, we are able to see. Yeah.
Okay, so this particular, I have two files. So I'll talk about the first one. So this is about the DATI project that we got with money from UGC, DATI, and TCS. So actually, TCS supported us in terms of PhD scholars. Where we went to TCS Research Lab in Hyderabad to make some of our presentations, and they also have come over here to see the demo of those products. And there were a couple of presentations by us in those TCS Research Labs during the entire duration of the project, because this was only one industry which funded us in this. So let me just tell you how the setup we created here. So let's say there is a hostel wing. We capture. So we have a Cisco's 3-tier architecture through which we have built up our campus LAN. So we have access switches, we have core switches, we have distribution switches in the middle. So there are around 14 to 15 distribution switches, 2 or 4 core switches, and around 200 access switches of Cisco, which are spread across this campus. And you can now see, as Dr. Sachin also was mentioning, that the classifiers and IDS, etc., they also have kept in the server room. So maybe 4 or 5 years back when we started this project, you can see in the server room, we created a setup through a switch. We created, we put a few servers there. One we called as IDS, Intrusion Detection System. Other one we
so we're getting little noisier because the internet connection is not good. We are little getting noise. Probably internet setting is not that good. Yeah. So can you just stop for some time, disable your video so that we can hear you at least well for some time.
Yeah. So video.
So there is a button there, video button. You can just click that, so then we can hear you.
Yeah, I stopped the video. Now is it better?
Yeah. So please continue.
So in this, can you hear me now? Hello. Okay. So in this slide, what I was talking, there are 2 different labs. In one lab, we are creating our own bots, the bot traffic generation lab, and then we used hardly 2 or 3 machines and 1 switch, and we created around 30-40 VMs on those switches. And then, although so one of our experience in that time, when we ran a bot source code, bot exe on those machines, actually it also went into the other labs. So there were some issue in terms of setting the switches, configurations, and all that. This was one of the work. On the right hand side, you can see the snort traffic, snort output, and the IDS output of ours. So around 20 to 30 IP addresses which were branded or classified as malicious IPs, which were running those peer-to-peer bots. Now, the second project that I said, you can see here there are a lot of IoT boards we used from Intel Galileo, Intel Atom. We used these Raspberry Pi those motion sensors, and we went into 3-4 different rooms. So one of the lab you can see there, Intel IoT Lab. So it was again a funding which I brought from Intel maybe 3-4 years back, where they gave us all those embedded boards, and we used some of those to create that setup there. And maybe the faculty chamber, you can see those sensors are fitted into one of the Intel boards over my printer, and there are 2 other. So the server room, we can see where we kept temperature and luminosity sensors. And once we had this setup, we actually made a cognitive IoT setup, that is your smart. So we did some energy saving or energy optimization through writing our own code in this. While doing that, we also injected our security solution into this, as I was saying, the ROB solution, where we have again optimized ROB chain and all that we did. Now, the companies which funded us, again Intel, TCS, so Cisco was actually the Netherlands Cisco which gave us, and again NWA is the Netherlands government organization which funded us. So my experience with your, coming to your question of how much you have or I have interact with the companies. So maybe these names that I have listed here, so they have seen our demos. Probably we have gone there, participated in joint research with their researchers, and I think we have also made some joint publications with some of those colleagues or people from those places. So beyond that, we have not gone into the patenting or productization phase, because it was a part of a academic research that I was trying to do.
Yeah. So there is a question for you, sir.
Yeah.
The basis of the
So
work
I'll close this.
Yeah. Yeah. So so what it talks about is the work that you did, right? So the peer-to-peer identification of peer-to-peer traffic and even possibility of malware and the campus network. So So this is a question, and this question would be very larger question in entire research community in the country. How can industry leverage this? So all of this research doesn't really translate into a product which can be leveraged, which can be used by industry. So what do you think? What should be done in terms of industry leveraging such kind of work happening in academic world? So this is the first question which is coming in this question bank, and that is directed to you.
Okay. So the companies actually into this space, the Indian companies. Say, for example, Cyberoom was actually a company from owned by a Gujarat entrepreneur, right? But now Cyberoom is being sold to Sophos over last 2-3 years. So the UTM manufacturers who are there in India, right? Who devise this type of products, right? Antivirus, spam filters, spy detectors, right? So that universal management box, right? Those people actually should show interest in this, and then I think we have given a demo to LIC, making our LIC presentations to Turkey during those days. And part of the project I actually deployed in our other campuses also, in our Pilani, and I think Goa we could not, but yes, Pilani in one of the labs, our code went, and then we had some results from there as well. But we had really not gone to any tapping any per se.
Yeah. So I think that is a good input. And still, there's still a little noise in because the connectivity seems still slow. But we will try to still make a sense. Because we little bit lost in what you said towards the end. But then one of the important questions which also come here, and this is for Sachin, Dr. Sachin. So you talk about these intelligent ideas, and there is a research area. But there is always a challenge that we security community feel is the one is the unknown malware, which is not known. Its natures are not known basically. And second is the sometimes encryption being used by malware. So how do you take care of this particular challenge, and what are those solutions that we can think about to solve this problem? So you are on mute. So you are on mute, so you can unmute.
Yeah, now it's okay with.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, the point is like we are experimenting with the standard data set which are having certain fields of the information of any packet that is traveling in the network actually. Say the flag, protocol used, like duration, IP connection, IP address, likewise. So basically similar to like as the role of learning process is like similar to us, we are training the system with some given standard data set, and after the training we are making such a system whenever that sort of traffic will come up, it will be automatically detecting that okay, there is some intrusion in the traffic. Are you getting my thought? Like in what way we are developing intelligent system over here? Basically first we are training the model, then we are testing, and then we are posting on. And for the experimentation we took the standard data set available like on the already published on the standard websites actually. And we are also planning with the real traffic to test our system design actually. That is our upcoming work actually. But so far what we did, like based on the network traffic, we have selected the features, means important feature that which are used for the classification of the malicious and or normal traffic, and after training of that will test for the real data actually.
So in other words, I think
and there is one thing, there is no part of like encryption of, because like features are not encrypted, like that is like IP address or like protocol used in that packet, that is a part of the packet which is transmitting over the traffic. Okay, so there is no question of encryption of, because encryption comes for the while do we deal with the confidentiality of the data, we want to protect the data from the unauthorized.
So you don't do it for metadata, you do it largely for the content, and probably that may not be a problem. So Professor Hota, you wanted to say that? Okay, so So let me go to the other question, which is and with your experience working in a IIT Kanpur, I think Professor Ketan, you can um, probably address this question. So although some institutions are taking this on their agenda, so they have cybersecurity branch, but there are many institutions which have not even taken cybersecurity on their agenda. Right? Um, uh, and then especially in the field of network and AI or something like network and security, merging that products together, and probably doing the postgraduate PhD level courses. So the question is like why there is a reluctance in terms of getting into the cybersecurity space? Is the capability is the issue, or infrastructure is the issue, or not availability of the various professors working in this area is the issue? So how do you see? Because we also feel at national level when we try to capture what we're doing, what in cybersecurity, we don't see much of the work, much of the PhD, MTech level programs in the cybersecurity.
Yeah, that is actually correct, and it's a difficult question. In fact, we also were not focusing that much on security maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago. There's no focus at all, I think. Overall in India, I think the systems level research was less, but certainly network and network security research was less. Only in the last 10 years, we really kicked it up the notch that we realized that this is very important. And we started getting so much request and so much interest from industry to carry out our own research on cybersecurity aspects. I myself, I was working on intrusion detection, but never looked at it from a security angle. I was always looking at what is the intrusion detection angle. So this security aspect, I think, only recently it has started. Even, for example, we look at UAV. Now, UAV security, no one was talking about it 3 years ago also.
Yeah.
We're talking only about UAV, whether how to fly a UAV. But now suddenly this security is a big issue. And there has not been there's no one around working on it already. So we just, try to modify our areas and try to look into what are the new aspects in UAV, what is different in UAV that will give us. And same for cyber infrastructure. So I think
there are specific area of a GPS, anti-GPS booking technology that you mentioned. And there is a specific question from one of the research engineer. So that is on a, you can also see that question. So we talk about anti-GPS booking attack, and probably on the GPS civilian signals, and what are the solutions you are, what kind of a specific thing that you use to do that one? And do you think IRNSS civilian signal is anyway better in terms of evading system?
So IRNSS, I don't have much experience because I don't have the device yet. They are yet to make sufficient devices, and we've not been able to procure one. But regarding GPS, it is an open system. So a problem with open system is that everyone knows how to make that signal. So we, even with a very small and cheap, maybe 5,000, 10,000 rupees equipment, I can make that signal. And there's no encryption there, and there's no possibility of encryption, adding encryption there. But what we do is look at this, that I was talking about, the network cartography. Any attack that is going to happen will only happen at one point. It is not possible to spoof all the GPS in your entire system, because everyone is receiving signal directly from the satellite. So any one point attack you can actually recognize by looking at the overall network signature. So that is, I think, the main defense that we have against GPS spoofing.
So Professor Sachin, there is another question on a because you talked about the intelligence ideas, and probably using AML technologies, this probably can be solved, but we all deal with the false positive, especially in the network security area, and sometimes because of that, traffic may get dropped, and some legitimate sessions may get dropped. So how do you use, when you are working on this technology stack? So do you try to solve these problems as well when you are talking about intelligent ideas ecosystem?
Actually, this is one of the performance parameter. Like whenever you are designing any prediction system, so you are basically proving the effectiveness of your prediction based on this parameter, false positive actually. Means how many times there is a giving the means mismatched predictions actually. Means say it was a normal, but it was predicting as a malicious actually.
Yeah.
Fine. So this is one of the parameter that we are using for.
Okay.
Okay. Means say if the quality or prediction accuracy of my system is not good, so this will not be a good. It means this will be more actually. Means we are always predicting the false things. So means our system is not good. I hope that you are getting my point. Like say here basically this is a part of the effectiveness of the, or you can say the accuracy of our prediction system that we have designed, intelligent prediction system actually.
So Professor Hota, yeah, I think this is. I think and most of us means when we talk about next generation networking security solution, we try to deal with this problem using this kind of uh, parameter system, and mostly we nowadays use AML quite significantly to continuously know the known behavior and try to identify the unknown behavior, and try to increasingly the effort is being made to not to go for a signature based, but it's more go for a behavior based kind of a networking security solution basically. And probably the intelligent ideas will try to bring that to the table, because it can look at the data for a long duration of time, and with that data it can try to look at what is the positive for, and what is the expected behavior, and what is the non-expected behavior. So this is a good area to really follow on, because this is the area larger. Now people talk about a lot of those new ideas like intent-based networking is something that people have been talking about. And there are so many those kind of capabilities which are coming in network security side, network side, which can lend critical benefit to the cyber security space. Right? So there is one question to Professor Hota. You talk broadly about the testbed that you created, and you had used some of those kind of resources available. You talk about this ROP that you use to solve the problem. So, for example, there is a something called the network cartography that Dr. Ketan talked about, and now there is a network sensor language like a Pro or Geek language frameworks which has been evolved, and people are building sensors. So these resources like the ZOP plus the cartography specific element or the G kind of, so these resources. So how much they are available, and are there anybody? So one of the important things I want to ask is the research should be fundamental. There is very less contribution commitment from outside on open source community basically. So we don't really, one is we struggle to commercialize the thing, and we also struggle to create a ecosystem around the work that we have been trying to do. So we don't put on, for example, GitHub and try to create a community around that. So how do you see entire the way the technology development is happening, and the effort that needs to be put out for people to know this framework, and more importantly, whatever you create at least open source application?
Okay. So I'll probably switch off my video because it looks like some intent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understood the question. Now, for example, for my first project, we used open source tools like Versa, Metasploit, Snort, then our own Java codes, then Vika, R. So these are all the platforms which are available. We don't need to buy any software to write those code and build those classifier models. And for the second project, the ROP one, so let me just tell one or two lines about ROP. So this is a technique where we go into the code, whether it's a source program or an exe program, and look for small gadgets. Now these gadgets are nothing but instruction sequences. Even you can carve out a gadget from assembly code also. So let's say, let me tell how does that gadget will look like. So there should be a return, RET, returning to some address. Before that, you must be doing some compare. You must be doing some arithmetic, adding one to a register content. So take only these small pieces of code. These are called as your ROP gadgets. And in any program, let's say if the program is of be it C, Java, etc., when you compile or make the exe code, you will get, let's say, not less than 10 to 20,000 lines of the binary code. So within those, you will get easily around 500 to 600 such gadgets. Then your objective should be to choose intelligently some of those gadgets which will not take much time, because we were targeting the IoT devices, which are again low processing power, low resource capability devices. We can't run a code with putting more overhead with the help of raw gadgets into it. So we used again some sort of soft computing or AI models like GA and Colony and all to optimize our ROB sequence. And once we have a code which is augmented with this ROB and we are running on the IoT device, this is not going to change the functionality of the device. For example, if there is an IoT gateway which was doing some sort of pre-processing and sending filtered out data items to a server in a regular interval, right? That can be a, let's say, Intel a Galileo board. Once we run this ROB augmented code on that Intel Galileo board, it is not going to change any functionality. It is going to do the same thing what it was doing. But if an attacker is trying to now poke in or get into the code where it wants to change the some of the functionalities of the code, then ROB gadget will not allow it to happen. It will stop in the middle. So that's how we have used ROB, where a lot of AI and other stuff is being used.
So I think because now the time probably is really running out, but I would like to hear from three of you, starting with Dr. Ketan. So we are doing this kind of a first exercise from DSI. We had been inviting professors to come to our platform, but for these two also, there are a lot of students and a lot of people coming from academic field here. And if you just look at the chat window here or question window here, there are a lot of startups now working in this area, and there are a lot of professionals working in the industry, right, in cybersecurity space. So how do you try? What can we do to bridge this kind of a silo, or try to remove or bridge this gap between the industry and academic work? So your program is really great program. You talk about how you want to work with the startup. So what more can be done in terms of bringing industry and academic work together? So the last question that I would like to ask each of you, and one last comment from each of you. We'll keep doing such kind of interaction more often from with Professor.
Yeah, so I think this security is one area where industry and academia don't interact. There's no point at all. It's like critical. The interaction is critical, and there are funding efforts coming from various sides. Really, like the interaction would really take off if large companies also contribute to funding efforts. Is what is sometimes missing in India. That's what I feel, that large companies, they are quite restricted in their funding, and it is them that are not really coming on board right now. So government has fully come on board. Small companies are also ready, but it is the large companies that I really want them on board. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, Dr. Sachin, you are on mute, sir.
Yeah, audio is off.
So your audio is off, sir.
I agree with the words of Dr. Rajawat. Like in India, like we are really constrained by that factor actually, and I'm like MEIT has already introduced like long back in the 2006. There is a one project ISCA, like in the phase 1, and now it is a phase 2 is ending by 2020 December. Basically, overall objective is to train the manpower to create the awareness towards the security and the need of security in our daily to daily life actually. And once it will come up, definitely the collaborations and the things will come up, because we will be totally clear about how much it is needed in the world of internet era actually, because we are this much used to with the like communicate network internet. So we are to like all the tasks we are doing with the, even today's session we are arranging with the internet only. So since it is a very, very important need, so definitely the security is a primary concern for some of the applications, which are very, very crucial and very, very popular to us actually.
So Professor Hota, briefly, if you can give your closing remarks. So you are also on mute, sir.
Yeah. So I think if we look into internet and try to find out how much in US the spending is for a single data breach per record, it is around $200 they spend. Whereas we spend here around $70 equivalent. Whereas if there is a data breach for a company, there in US they spend around 5 to 6 million USD. Whereas in India we spend around 14 to 15 crores if there is a data breach for an entire organization. So I think our Indian government, like METI, CERTIN, DST, all funding agencies or government bodies have been trying to push this security over last not 1 or 2 years, maybe 7 to 8 years, starting with needing 5 lakhs of security professionals who can handle or who can manage these activities. And going to this recent hack that has happened on the Twitter hack, right? Nobody could imagine what type of sophisticated social engineering attacks they made to even get into the agent tools, which were actually proprietary to Twitter to do this hack. So in India, actually, whether it's a company which is working on security or not, if it has a business where they are involving internet or a network, then they are actually prone to security. So at least 4 to 5 people, the staff of that company should be educated about the security and they should have valid degrees. Now coming to interaction with academia, the first step they can do is they should call people who are active researchers in these areas and probably have some sort of joint collaborations or discussions like this, understanding each other, the other's capabilities, and then taking it forward for probably joint projects, joint grants, and taking it to the product level. Yeah.
I think so. This is a really good interaction, sir. This is the first such attempt that we trying to do, and we will keep doing this more. So DSA can be and is continued to connect the academia and industry together, and we have now specific initiative of the National Cybersecurity for Cybersecurity Product Entrepreneurship, and that is how we are making these connections as well. So we would do a lot of things from our side, and we also have a lot of blessing from government, and I agree to a certain extent that startups are there, government is also awakened to this one, but probably we need to bring the larger companies as well in this particular effort, and we'll keep doing this effort together. So this was a really wonderful discussion. Thanks, Dr. Sachin, Dr. Ketan, and Dr. Hota to be part of this interaction, and we will keep doing such interaction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for spending time with us today. And as Vinayak said, this is one of the first sessions that we have done where we invited the professors to interact with the students and discuss on network security. I would also like to mention that National CoE, we have our own incubation program wherein students, especially or any startups who are in a very early stage, they can apply for the incubation program, and we can receive their applications and then see how we can help them further. So you can see the benefits that National Center of Excellence offers in our CoE incubation program. And there's also a link mentioned at the bottom. So you can visit our website and you can take more information about this program. Thank you. So we'll now break for a few minutes before we start for our second panel discussion, which is on innovation in network security. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.